So welcome back to Coach Certification Training. We are still officially in week 3. Even if you're in a different week in the training, we're going to cover something from week 3 today. Now, it may be hard to believe based upon this hackneyed, barely made it to the end of the page title, but I actually have been a six-figure coach for over 10 years, over a decade. Every single year, I make more sales, generate more revenue purely from coaching than 100,000. So 100,000, 200,000, $250,000, whatever it is, we bounce around in those areas. I also have helped start, I think, 4 or 5 million dollar a year coaching organizations at this point. Several of which I actually still am an advisor for, or coaching, or supporting in some other way. So I am uniquely qualified to actually talk about what we're going to talk about today. But before I get to that, welcome back to Coach Certification Training. In these live streams, we are spending extra time together to give you some extra detail around some of the disciplines, the advanced elements of the skill sets of coaching, if you will, or the domains of coaching, so that you can add even more kind of fill in the crack type of support and information and training and tutorial beyond what we got time for in the training sessions. Now, ever since we started doing these training sessions on Zoom, where we have an extra level of engagement, these training sessions have been going quite long. If you haven't noticed, we're actually spending 3-4 hours together or more during these training sessions. So, to some extent, I apologize about that, but also it makes me realize that even with all the time we spend together answering those questions and covering some really important facets of each discipline, we can't possibly get to everything. It's not meant to, this training is not meant for you to learn everything there is to learn about all these advanced disciplines. This is meant as an introductory course so you can really get your feet wet with these disciplines and be certified in advanced coaching. But on top of that, I also want to give you some entry-level insights that I know that if this is my first year coaching, my first couple years coaching, I would want that kind of leg up. So I'm here to offer you what, I think I did not have at the time that I started. So let's get to it. So we're going to talk today, as it says here on the big board, six-figure business coach secrets. We're going to talk about those. And I'm going to start by sharing with you a little bit of background of when I was introduced to the secrets that I'm about to share with you. Now, I learned about the tool I'm going to talk to you about today in my first couple years of coaching, but I didn't understand it. You ever have something like that where you're introduced to a technology or a tool, like maybe an app on your device or something, and it just like, oh, that's cool, and then it just kind of passes you by and you forget about it after a while, and then later on, for whatever reason, you're like triggered to think about it again or triggered to start using it, and all of a sudden it's like the key to success for you. You ever have anything like that? Well, this was that for me. Like, I was introduced to this tool and this approach in the year 2000 when I first got trained under Anthony Robbins as one of his coaches, one of his results coaches, as we used to call it at the time. And they gave us these tools, and we used these tools, and we just kind of took them for granted. We're just like, yeah, it's just this tool. We learned how to read them. Interesting, but, it doesn't really mean anything, and we're great coaches. We're just going to do our job. And although most of us coaches at the time, we were very skilled, and so we really believed in what was possible for us as coaches, when most of us left, which most of us did very quickly because it was kind of an entrepreneurial environment, everybody was bouncing around, getting new jobs and finding new opportunities and connecting with new people, and really making ourselves super valuable to our clients for that matter as well. People would leave and go do other things, as I did eventually after about a year and a half of working with the Robbins organization. So when I started back as a coach and started my business as a coach, a couple years after that, kind of found my way into the business again, I just thought I was going to use my skills, and I struggled greatly, and I tried to work with businesses, but as you might have heard in past live streams that we just did recently, I pretty much crash and burn on a regular basis. And it was not pretty. It was nothing that I'd like to see you regularly experience. And I'd like to help you get past that. Because the fact is that the coaches I'm going to talk about today and the strategies I'm going to talk about today, don't take more than a year or so to not only learn, but then appropriate and onboard to the point of actually being able to generate six figures as a coach. Now, might they take you longer? Yeah, they might, but so what? So what? If you want to take longer and take your time with them, then that's cool. But it's like, if you're doing six figures as a coach and that's really like your dream, then isn't that worth it? Take more than a couple years to do it? But the point I'm making is, a lot of the coaches that I trained and a lot of the coaches that I'm going to talk about today, within the first year they were doing six figures, at least annualized, by using the tools and strategies I'm going to share with you right now. So coming back to this, I knew this tool and I thought I just took it for granted, like it's not needed. And then eventually I was lucky enough to stumble upon a seminar called the Full Practice Forum. And at the time it was like my old VP from Tony Robbins, who had also quit, because everybody quits there, they have 40% turnover. She'd invited me to join them in this seminar, and all these old coaches from Robbins were there, and among others, a lot of other coaches that I had never met before. And we spent a couple days learning how these people were generating six-figure practices. And so at the end of the seminar, this guy Robert, who was one of the top coaches in the world at the time, who was doing $1 million a year as a coach, he said, guys, if you want, I'll work with you ongoingly, and it'll be like $300 a month. It'll be a group, and then you can learn more from me, and we can keep working together, and you guys can all become six-figure coaches, right? And so I thought, wow, if there's like six of us in a group, that's like $50-$60 a month, right? That's 100, whatever. That's pretty cheap. That's a great deal. And one of the people that were there, one of the coaches that were there, said that, and he looked at him like, you idiot. No, it's $300 a month for each of you. Right? And I'm like, oh no, I don't have that kind of money, it's like $300 a month. It's like, I was struggling to survive at the time, right? Didn't have a lot of money in the old account. I was living with roommates in Mission Valley, California, just trying to get started. And I stopped myself there and I thought, okay, like how would Tony Robbins thought of this? And I thought, he'd probably ask a different question than, can I afford this? Because the answer was like, no, I can't afford this. So I thought, well, what kind of question would be a more positive question? Well, how can I actually afford this? Or how would this actually work if I were to do this? And I started getting creative, and I thought, you know what? If I just get a couple clients, it'll pay for my fee, and maybe I can do this. I've got the cash to handle it, at least initially. And I joined Robert on this journey with a bunch of other new coaches, and we started working together. And about 4 or 5 months later, there were not enough people in the group to make enough money for Robert for him to decide that he was going to continue to do it. And he said, okay guys, this is it. This is the last month we're working together. So a couple months later, I called him and I pursued working with him one-on-one. And I had made another giant leap, which we worked out how I was going to, because I didn't have the money. He was charging like $1,000 a month at the time. And we made an agreement that I was going to give him like a percentage of my income as I grew, and then he was going to teach me how to make that kind of money, right? And so it was just one of those nutty, setups that he creatively set up with me, and he ended up making a lot of money off of my income, and I ended up doing quite well. Like about 6, 7, 8 months later, I had, probably 3 to 5x my my cash, just based upon what I was working with him on, and my own just work at the time too. So it made a difference. But one of the things he introduced to me, again, I don't want to say introduced, reintroduced to me, was this tool that we're going to talk about today. And he said, look, Jeff, I mean, if you're really serious about coaching businesses, you got to use this. You got to use this tool. And he was making $1 million a year at the time, and he said, Jeff, and I literally have this written on my wall, even to this day, even though he told me this, you know, like almost 20 years ago, he told me this. He said, Jeff, you know, you got to build this business. I mean, you can't be in like a hurry about it. This is a business, okay? This is not a game. We're not just like tripping over ourselves trying to, you know, run after the next dollar here. This is, and I'm sorry, I'm looking over here because I'm reading this off my wall. This is building a business with a lifetime foundation. Build in faulty infrastructure now and pay double for it later. And then he goes on to tell me what he's trying to convince me of this, right? Because I'm this young idiot who knows nothing and is taking for granted all the things he's giving me, right? Like, you know, I just want to make money. Just like, what's the next thing to do, right? And he said, last month's revenues, $140,000, and 90% of it was passive income. If I did not have a virtually flawless system, this would not take place. Brick by brick by brick, build a solid foundation and then watch the revenues take care of themselves. We need to build a cash flow system that is not dependent solely on your labor. That alone will put a ceiling on where you can go. The ideal is to build a business, not a job. So that's what he said to me. And he said, look, Jeff, you're just taking for granted what I'm telling you. I know you've used this tool before. I know I trained you on it because I met him originally at Tony Robbins. And he said, you gotta go to these trainings. You gotta learn this stuff, and you gotta really master this and use the tools that I'm giving you. And so I took his word for it. I said, you know what? You're the coach. I'm not. I'm going to follow through on this. And I did. And then I went to this conference. I met all these six-figure coaches and learned about the tools that they use. And I met a guy named Randy there. And Randy owned a Tony Robbins franchise. Now, Tony originally had like 7 or 8 of these franchises across the nation or the world or whatever in different areas. People would buy into the franchise and then they would like sell his programs, and you know, it was kind of a mess, but people, you know, there was some pretty heavy-duty franchisees that ran those. Some of his best students, if you will. So Randy was one of these guys. And Randy did $1 million a year plus in revenue every year. He was a consultant, he did HR coaching, he had training programs, and he said, you know, Jeff, you know, you should come out to Vegas. I'm running this sales training. It's a 3-day Power to Influence seminar that I learned from Tony Robbins. It's actually franchised to me to give this seminar to people. And I just want to, you know, I'd like to get your feedback on like what you think of it. So I said, geez, you know, 3-day seminar on selling, like I want to be there because I want to master that skill because it's part of my business, huge part of my business. So I drove out to Vegas or flew, I can't remember. Anyway, I get in Vegas and, you know, I'm staying at like this casino, this nasty casino. I don't know why I stayed there. It was a cheaper hotel than where they were actually doing the training. And I went to the training and I see Randy. And, you know, we're walking to the training room. It's like 10 minutes before the training starting. And Randy's sitting there wheeling his stuff out, you know, like basically as late as I was going to be to the training. And he's giving the training. He's like, hey, man, you know, shake hands. And we're walking to the training together. And he says to me, you know, so how are you doing using those tools? I'm like, I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure it out. And he said, you know what? You know, I work with some of the biggest companies in the world. I work with Apple. I work with Philip Morris. I work with these big organizations. You know, when I use this tool with them as a coaching tool or as an HR tool or as a hiring tool, he said, you know, it's insane. You know, they get addicted to it. And he gets up really close to me and he says, it's like crack. It's like crack. They get addicted to it, right? And I'm looking at him like, oh my God, what is going on with this guy? And I didn't understand what he meant, really. I mean, I understood, like, I don't know, theoretically what he meant, but it didn't make any sense to me at the time. So I sit down in the training room, right, and he ran the tool on everybody in the training room, and I started taking the tool because I was an expert in it. I was reading like their assessment results, which is basically the tool I'm talking about, and all of a sudden all these business people started flocking around me saying, oh, read mine, read mine, read mine. And they started they were like room rushing me, and I'm not the guy running the training, right? So I go to lunch with a couple of these business people. I connect with them. They're still in my network till today. And some of them hired me as their coach out of a seminar I was not even running because of this tool, right? So I got clients out of it, and Randy told me it was like crack. I'm like, I wonder what he meant by that. And so years later, I figured it out, that when I started using this tool with larger clients, they couldn't help but use it more and more and more. Not like a dumb thing like you think about crack, but like something where they suddenly decided that their future, their company was hinging on the use of this tool. And I'm like, wow, this really is addictive for these guys, for these customers. And they would come to me and they would beg me to read these results, and they would send clients to me as a result of this. I already understood the tool for years, but I just didn't understand how it was used successfully in the business. And that was around the time when we started hitting 6 figures in the business. Temporarily, in 2008, we lost it for a while, and then we got back, and now over 10 years we've been doing that as well. And this is a huge reason why. It's probably one of the highest paid tools and methods that we use. It's really a huge secret till this day. Most coaches know nothing about this or undervalue it as well. So at some point in that history, I got a phone call, and this guy on the other end of the phone said, look, we're looking to get you guys to coach us. This is going to be a consulting engagement, a training and coaching, follow-up coaching engagement with Shell Oil. And we are going to be coaching the managers people that are being promoted to managers on the offshore oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to run these trainings with like 30 to 50 of these guys, and then you and your team are going to be coaching them, day after day after day for like 6 months. And these offshore oil platforms are very dangerous, and the management structure and the ability to actually get along and collaborate and communicate on these platforms is life and death, because they're basically working on a bomb, right? Because they're sucking all this oil out of the ground, out of the sea, and they're holding it there on the platform until I don't know how they transport it off. I'm not that expert, never figured that part out. But my team coached these guys for years, right? We made tens of thousands of dollars off of that one engagement. But before we started, after I hung up the phone with this opportunity that I got with, if you look at Shell Oil, they're like the biggest company in the world. They were until oil died, years ago. They'll probably never come back from that. But they were literally as measured by revenue, they were the largest company in existence, right, at the time, just by revenue, right? Multinational, multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation. And I sat back and I thought, okay, so I've been coaching for years. I've coached every kind of person you could imagine individually. I've done some programs. I've done trainings. I have worked with businesses from time to time, no doubt, but mostly like smaller businesses. I'm about to coach the largest organization on the planet. Not just Fortune 10, like the #1 biggest company. And I smiled and I said, I guess I don't really have to achieve anything after this. I'm pretty sure I've made it. I patted myself on the back and had a little, victory dance, so to speak, and went and bragged to friends and family about it. And the #1, I went back later and I asked the guy that got me the job, that got me that gig, that engagement, why us? Why did you choose to work with my team? And he said, well, there's a lot of good coaches out there, but we need somebody who can use these particular methods and have these particular secrets and know these tools, because we use them like crazy. And we know how valuable they are. That's the entire it's what our multi-million-dollar programs are leveraged on. It's what they are predicated on. It's what they are centered around. So that's why. I mean, we figured you had multiple coaches. That's good. That's what we need. But we need people that know these skills. And they literally, before we solidified our partnership, they really grilled us on, hey, do these guys know these tools? And of course, we had what I called assessment coach training at the time. So we had trained them up and down in these tools. So I got a call years later from a multi-billion-dollar multinational education organization who happens to be like this kind of newfangled corporation called a B Corp. It's kind of like a socially conscious multinational organization, right? They're called Laureate, and they said, look, we're promoting somebody to a high level of executive, and we need you to work with these guys, and we want you to help us to groom them for the C-suite. And the first thing they asked me was, do you use any kind of developmental tools in your coaching program? I said, glad you asked. I use this and this and this. And we use them to customize the program, and I debrief the results on them. And I sent them these, and I sent them the backing, the statistical analysis that shows that these tools are worth their salt. It's not just like, what Star Wars character you most like or something like that. This is serious stuff. And I got the job. Years before that, I got a call from Vitamix. Some of you actually probably already heard about this one. And they literally asked me to come in because of this tool. They said, what can you do for us? And I said, hey, how are you hiring your people? And they said, we have no clue who we're bringing on. And I said, that's insane, and you need to use this tool. And we ran hundreds of those tools on their current demonstrators throughout the Costco's and the Whole Foods of the world, the home shows, and figured out what makes a really, really effective salesperson when it comes to a Vitamix demonstrator as well. And ended up coaching a lot of those people also. So these are organizations that, if you get one or two of these customers, they alone can make six figures for you in your business coaching business, if you're a business coach, right? And the reason I got those calls, I mean, they called me. I wasn't hunting them down. I literally didn't prospect any of them. I didn't cold call any of them. I'm not saying I've never done that, but I didn't do it with them. The reason why they called me was this tool. That's it. That's the reason why. The reason I got Vitamix and Shell and Dole, Fresh Vegetables, and other billion-dollar corporations is this tool. It's the tool we're going to talk about today, and the methodology that we're going to talk about today. So the fastest path to six figures in business coaching is using assessments as your go-to coaching tool. See, assessments, something that looks like this, let's say, help accelerate you to six figures through making up for blind spots in your coaching. Maybe you're not the top coach in your class yet. Maybe you're not the most advanced business coach. It makes up for blind spots in your coaching. It adds passive income into your income stream, so you end up having multiple streams of coaching income. It gives you instant credibility because the credibility that the tool brings with it, and it really opens doors to any other people-driven, or even if they're not driven by people, but people-dependent businesses that you can coach. So think about this tool that we're talking about here, this thing right here. Think about this tool like the center of your business coaching business, the center of that universe. And then all these things I just mentioned, they're like radiating out, all these benefits, these multi-dimensional, multifaceted benefits to your business. And each one of them, they're not just like, oh, that's nice that I get instant credibility. No, that lends to all the other benefits as well. They multiply each other. Make sense? And so if you've ever thought about like what brings margin into a business, or what brings income into a business, it's taking one advantage and then overlapping it with another one, and then overlapping it with another one. If you look at any really successful business, like McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Microsoft, they don't just have one advantage, they have hundreds of advantages. And each of those advantages multiply the other advantages. And then, how like in evolution, the big fish ends up getting bigger because it's really, like if my mouth is bigger, I'm a bigger fish, I can eat even more, and that makes me even fatter and even bigger. And then I end up eating all the other fish and they all die out and I'm the only fish, right? That's what happened to Microsoft. That's what happened to Amazon. This is like monopolies, right? So they take one advantage. I mean, I'm not really off the cuff, like, let's say McDonald's is a good example. They had an advantage called their system for quickly getting food out. Fast food. That was the beginning of it. Rather than going to the diner at the time, in like the 50s, I guess, 50s, 60s, and waiting for like 10, 20 minutes for them to like, short order cooks kind of thing, and they fry everything up to order, and they don't really have a system. They just kind of like do it one at a time. McDonald's was like, no, we have these conveyor belts, and we have this rotator thing, and the fries just come out as soon as they're done, and we just kind of, like, we don't sell like 12 different things or 20 different things on the menu. We have like 2 menu items, and that whole thing comes together for, hey, here's my money, and you get your food. Watch The Founder, that movie, if you want to get a good sense of that. It's a great movie, Michael Keaton and whatnot, but it also kind of gives a sense of what some of these advantages initially were. And one of them was their system that they had, that the McDonald's brothers had built, right, for efficiency and getting people what they wanted fast and cheap. Like 1 or 2 people could run a restaurant and they could just dish out all this food, right? But later on, Ray Kroc, when he kind of stole the business out from under the McDonald's brothers, he started thinking about, wait a second, part of the advantage here that we can lapse on top of that in business is real estate ownership. Because if we have the right location and this amazing system for fast food, well then people are already there. So it's like location, like that's the whole thing in real estate, right? So then if we have the right real estate and we own that real estate, so the asset goes up in value over the years, but more people live in New York and Times Square and, in the center of the universe or each town, we own all that real estate or control it at least. Well then that's a moneymaker for us just because of foot traffic, if nothing else. And everybody likes our food. And then on top of that, we're going to build a brand. And we're going to have Ronald McDonald and all this other stuff, Anybody, like Christmas is coming right now, and we might not be watching this at that time, but at whatever time you're watching it, but like Coca-Cola literally invented Santa Claus, right? This whole Santa Claus thing, like not saying that there aren't some historical elements around that, but they're the ones that came up with the Santa Claus thing. Red Santa Claus, red Coca-Cola, right? And like he sold Coke for them. That was a strategic advantage for them that they built on top of their formula. And like initially they literally had cocaine in it, like coca leaves were part of the ingredients. So they had all sorts of wacky advantages, right? But you layer all these advantages, and what I'm telling you here is that this one tool doesn't just give you like one little advantage. I mean, you could use it just for that, but it gives you like 6, 10, 20 advantages, all on top of each other if you use them simultaneously. And then 2 times 2 is 4, then 2 times 2 times 2 is then 8, and all of a sudden instead of like 1 unit of value in your business, you get 8, because you multiply these advantages off of themselves. It's not 6 units of value, it's 8 because they multiply. Does that make sense? So we want to layer these advantages. I know it's very conceptual, but I really want to give you a sense of why this single asset brings multiple advantages to your business, and we're going to talk about those. I already mentioned them, but I'm going to get into a little bit deeper detail about it. So we had a couple comments. Assessments have been a game changer for me, big time. Very nice. One person told me I was able to help them. Today told me I was able to help them finally understand themselves. As a result, she's now looking for a job that is a fit for her. That's awesome. Yeah. So career coaching, great output for assessment results as well. Plus your own intuition, your own understanding, your own process. On top of that, multiply those advantages, right? So anyway, let's get into some of these benefits. So first, and this one's a big one if you're new as a coach, because this is big. I mean, we talked about this when you started certification, which is one of the key issues for new coaches especially is is confidence. That coaches need that sense of confidence to go out there and even like offer what they offer versus even like provide it, right? And so one of the things that this tool does is it makes up for bad coaching. It's one of the crutches that you can use as a coach. So like I think I mentioned this the other day in the other video where we talked about this live stream. Why I think it was like why use assessments in your practice. I talked about how most of those coaches that I met that were six-figure coaches that I met at that initial conference were not better coaches than me. I'd worked really hard on my coaching. I was still not that confident, but I was confident enough. And these guys, they were all confident, but they weren't confident because they had coaching skills that rivaled mine. They were confident because they were doing really well and they were making really good money, I think. And the tool made up for their own blind spots. Because when you can just read this tool, you don't necessarily have to read people. You just read the tool and you know a lot about that person, about that client. In fact, we'll empower our clients, our business clients, the management in the business with this tool, because not all business managers are people managers, right? They're business managers. And so they're not going to be any better than you or I at reading people and understanding what makes people tick. They never will. That's just not that's not their specialty. But you give them this tool and they have a leg up, and suddenly they know a lot about this individual, even with being, deaf, dumb, and blind, so to speak. And so a lot of coaches start out as bad coaches, right? And we all start out there, or coaches that have trouble diagnosing and understanding what makes people tick and stuff like that. This, if you learn to read these, it's like instantaneously you can already get a sense of what makes that person tick. If you look at their graph, and you can pass that on to your coaching process as well. So it really helps make up for your flaws. Now, look, I'm not about like, hey, having permanent flaws as a coach, but I know a lot of coaches that have permanent flaws, and they have six-figure businesses by using that tool. We had another comment. Didn't understand how big of a tool this was until I started using them. Yeah, that's like what I was saying at the beginning here. It's like I was using these tools, and I knew they gave me one advantage of like understanding people more quickly, but I didn't get what an advantage it was in my business until my mentor, just kicked my butt about it and told me, look, you gotta straighten up, and like you need to find some ways to really make money as a coach, and if you're gonna coach businesses, you gotta do this. I would never have put the time, money, and energy into mastering this strategy or this tool had he not been somebody I really looked up to at the time, and I really believed in because I knew what he had accomplished himself. And that's, in a way, I'm trying to pay that forward. Like I said, I've done every amazing thing that a coach could probably want to do, at least once or twice, and many of them, not all, but many of them are literally because of this. Among other things that I stacked on top of that for sure. But this is gigantic. So yeah, thanks for saying that. That's a very good point. So that's the first one. Just use it as a crutch for your coaching. Like leverage your coaching off of this before you're like just a master mind reader, and before you are, an intuitive psychic, right? Okay, so next, passive income. So if you have a business that you can find that needs people to work for them that do a good job, then you can generate passive income off of that business, because that business needs to pay you every time they use an assessment in their recruiting, right? So they need to know who fits on my team and who doesn't. Yeah, we're going to get into the hiring advantage in a second, because that's literally something I'm going to put slides up about. But that's a passive income vehicle right there. When you know that even without you doing anything, you generate income every month as a coach, you have that stream of income, clients will come and go, right? But that income sticks around. Remember what I just read off my wall? I'll read it again. Not the whole thing, but my original coach that got me into this, he said last month's revenues were $140,000. He was making like $1 million a year, right? $140,000, 90% of it was passive income. He wasn't making $140,000 coaching people. Nobody does that. Tony Robbins does. That's about it, right? There's a couple programs that'll do it, but that's not it. Literally, this guy that originally was was mentoring me, he didn't have a team. He didn't have a bunch of coaches. He didn't have some big program. The internet wasn't a big thing at the time. I mean, you could use it for email. That was about it, right? You weren't streaming videos off of it for the most part. So, like, he was just a one-on-one individual coach, ran a few programs, and had assessments, you know. And he did millions of dollars in passive income as a result of using this tool. So yes, he made good money coaching. He was probably making 6 figures just coaching, but he's making 7 figures as a result of this tool. And that was passive. That was passive income he generated off of that. Okay, so we'll get back to like how you might do that in a second. Next, instant credibility. Instant credibility. When you use a tool that's been used with the Fortune 10, the biggest companies in the world, and we have a list of clients, and it's basically all the big companies in the world, like governments, etc. And you can leverage that if you're licensing these with us. I'll send you our account, all the accounts that we've worked with, right? And you just, like, when somebody's saying, well, who the heck are you? You can say, here's who I work with. Here's who uses our tools. You can honestly say that, right? Now, again, obviously saying I work with them, you know, like, yes, I mean, it's kind of like you and your ilk, right? Here's who my predecessors have worked with, using the same methods that I use, right? Like that, you know, be more right on the money, but you get the idea. Like, that takes away any question other than if, like, you just dress bad or, you know, you look funny or something like that. So instant credibility, because we use this tool with all the biggest companies in the world. We have numerous statistical validation studies that back it up from, you know, major, you know, universities. We have all that data, right? It's just you can't say that this is not a valid tool to use. All they can argue is that you don't know what you're doing. And, you know, when you show that you can read the tool, they can't even say that. We've got a comment. Hiring is a huge tool. Yeah, career coaching, choosing rules, goal setting, personal motivation. Yep, blind spots. Yeah, because we can locate the blind spots. Yeah, we talked about that the other day. Assessment and disc coaching at a cheap price seems to me like a great alternative to free sessions. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, totally. Yeah, because you can charge for the assessment and gift the coaching, or the other way around, you can gift the coaching and charge it. No, sorry. The other way around, you can gift the assessment and charge for the coaching, right? Either way, that could work. You know, sometimes if the prospect is big enough, I'll just give them the assessment and use the doctor close and call them up and say, hey, I see some things in your assessment we need to talk about, right? And then curiosity brings them to me, because I know I don't need them paying for that upfront consult, because as soon as I consult with them, I'm going to get tens of thousands of dollars of the business off of that relationship, because I know who they are. You know, I know the kind of leverage they have in their business. Okay, but either way, you know, whatever works. You could definitely charge for it up front, no doubt. So that's the instant credibility piece. Also, and we just started talking about this. Let's see, lower price point product leading to bigger things, for sure. Yeah, whatever that lower price is. So this, as we just talked about, opens doors for you. This assessment is a door opener. And the reason is because curiosity, right? Like, hey, I wonder what your results say. You're a really high performance person. You've been very successful in business. I'd love to see why you are that way. I'd love to see what your strengths are based upon that. And, you know, what's gotten you to this point. I'm sure you could tell me, but, you know, we have a statistically validated tool with which the algorithm that runs the tool takes into consideration over 40,000 parameters to measure your behavioral tendencies, your instinctual reactions, your strong points, your drives, your philosophy, and all these things in like 20 minutes. You know, I'd be happy to gift you that tool. It's like a $250 tool, but I'll give it to you because I just love to see the results. You think somebody's, you know, like curiosity or at least ego would get the best of them and say, yeah, okay, I'll take the tool, right? Then you just got to follow up and make sure they take it, right? The busier they are, the harder this is, obviously, but, you know, it's just a matter of time before they'll find the time. This is not something that they won't have time for eventually, because it's like 10, 20 minutes max. The other thing is, if they say, gosh, I don't have any time right now, you can just tell them, you know what, when you see these results, I've never heard anybody, once they get the results, tell me they don't have time to look at them. Because it's like your favorite subject, you, right? You're going to learn about yourself. Yeah, people love to hear and know what the strengths of their profile is and where they can shine. Yeah, totally. So that's a door opener. The credibility that provides you is a door opener. The applications that you can talk about, how you can help with hiring and how you can help with management and how you can help with team building. We'll get into those even more in a second. Those are door openers depending on the prospect. Just finding what the problems are in an organization. This is a tool for like 50% of the problems organizations have. You know what? Our people, we don't have the right people. This is the solution. Hey, you know what? Our teams, they don't communicate well together. This is a solution. Hey, you know what? Our managers are doing a crappy job. This is a solution. Right? I mean, I could go on and on. Okay? It's not the only solution, but it's a solution for those elements, along with the services and products and trainings and work that you do, the consultations and the analysis that you do, along with this tool that you can bring to that table. So, huge door opener from all those perspectives. And then finally, over here, you control this. This is their people. You actually have the key to this. Businesses like Shell or Dole or McDonald's or Vitamix or any of your customers, even small businesses, what makes businesses shine are the people in the business. They're not just these machines. Other than Facebook's a machine that's run by robots, basically, from what I can gather. But everybody else, all the other businesses in the world, for the most part, are not yet run by AI completely. There are people that actually have to talk to other people or push buttons or work with each other, collaborate and be creative, etc. Right? People run businesses. They make businesses succeed. They make them fail. They just do. Right? So the reason why I need a business rather than just a little consulting job or just a little entrepreneurial solopreneur thing is because I need more than me to make something happen. I need this. So here's the thing. Business people, they don't care about people per se. I'm sure many of them do, but that's not their high priority. Their priority is the money, right? But here's the thing. Every one of these, the right people bring money in. The big multi-million-dollar coaching company I work with right now, and I help them to hire, using this tool, a new director of marketing. And that marketing director has tripled their lead flow over the past couple years. And the principal, one of the principals in the organization said, how the heck did we find her? Tell me how you did that. Because she's like a genius. And we want more people like her. And I said, well, get to know me. And I can help you with that. Right? We help them with all sorts of onboarding like that and selection like that, right? And also, if you have somebody good on your team, but you don't know how to make them productive, you don't have to how to turn that person into gold, well then we gotta use the tool and figure out how to do that, how to manage them better, how to motivate them better, how to coach them better. It's all inside of that tool. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it is. And you can convince people that it's all inside of that tool if you have any expertise in salesmanship in that area. So, if the business is driven by people, if the business is even dependent on people, like truck driving companies, companies that have a bunch of truck drivers working for them, guess what? They've used us. They've used this tool because guess what? Some truck drivers are more reliable than others. Some truck drivers get into accidents and some don't. And if you got 1,000 truck drivers driving trucks around for you, you might want to have an idea of which profile makes a good truck driver. We've actually got statistical analysis on that. And on and on and on. So whatever organization you're thinking about working with, 9 out of 10 of them, they need people to make money. It's not just about money. They're not these inhuman, just greed machines. I'm not saying they're not greedy. Sometimes they can be. But they're about getting results with their people. Even if they don't know it, they got to be about that. And your job is to connect these dots. As long as you can and by the way, some prospects, they'll totally know this already, but you just got to make them understand that this is where their money is. This is where their bread is buttered. This is where their wallet is coming from. It's coming from these people. Then, you just point them back to the assessments, because then you have your hand in their wallet. You have their hand on their wallet, right? You're the one that is mitigating to some extent or causing the money and the people to align, show up in their business. So I'll give you one example. Actually, you know what? Should I go to slides now? Yeah, I'll show you this in a second. So just one example. I'm going to show you the slides of this because we didn't get to this in the training, and you might see this in the training anyway, depending on when we're hanging out. But like salespeople make money for organizations, and if you're an organization like car sales or mortgage or any kind of organization where it needs human salespeople to actually make sales, then your whole organization exists because these salespeople are good at what they do and they're willing to work for you, and you've got the right salespeople. So we use this tool to help select the right people for that job, which then makes money for the business. And then, why wouldn't that business want to spend money on us because we're the ones that brought the right people to them? It's insane not to do that. So I mean, that's an easy one right there. Anything that has to do with human capital management. This is your human capital. How do you manage it? How do you select it? How do you motivate it, etc.? That's what we're talking about here. This is the human capital management tool of this century. And you and I have access to it. Let's see. It's just a quick chat here. It's somewhat freeing for them to understand why they are the way they are. Yeah, it's a very good point. So these are the benefits that you generate. And like our friend Randy said, he was doing $1 million from this. They're like crack after a while. And hopefully you can understand why. It's like this is where everything emanates from in the business. So let's get into some of the uses of this, and then we're going to go to slides in a second. I'm going to show you some ways to think about certain aspects of the ways you can use these as well. Now, we already talked about this in a past video, in a past live stream. You can use these, as we just talked about as well, as a lead generation tool, as a curiosity tool, as a door opener, so to speak. Hey, would you like to know why you're successful in these areas and what areas you struggle with and why? And what's at the source of that, where your blind spots are? Is that something that'd be worth 10 minutes of your time? Because we have this very specific tool that we can use that uses 40,000 parameters that's statistically validated by the biggest universities in the world and that the Fortune 10 uses, and I'd like to gift it to you, and I'm happy to go over the results. Right? For a worthwhile prospect, that's an easy pitch to make. There's just so many examples of that. I remember there was a guy that was referred to me, and he worked at Kyocera America. They're the chip maker, and I sent him this tool, and I said, before we talk, I want you to take this because this is going to tell me a lot about how you are successful. Because he was a VP of operations and HR at Kyocera. So that got us we almost got a 6-figure contract off of that lead. It's just insane what was available to me there. It got me into, I literally going over to the campus at Kyocera, having meetings with this guy's underlings to strategize on how we could work together. That was very close to becoming a very good gig for us. So there's lots of examples of that I could get into that I won't waste time with. Next, we talked about this in the last video as well, using it in a business assessment. So walking into a business, assessing the business, using these tools, and then consulting with them on the results. You could get paid for that initial consult, and then also the solutions usually that are required, because you're going to assess and understand where are the weak points in this business. Think of a business think about it this way. Think of a business like it's like a bunch of links in a chain, right? And this has to happen, and this, and then this, and then this, in order to ultimately render profit, right? And you can make an assessment of all these links by running these assessments, and notice this is the weak link. And then that weak link then points to solutions, right? And those solutions cost money, but they're convinced of those solutions because you truly assess this and you know it's real. And then, bam, you pitch those. You can make money here on the assessment, and you make money here on the consulting or the training or the coaching or whatever it is that you have offered them that will help to strengthen that link in the chain to render more cash. This triangulation of that proves that you're worth something, that you make them money. You're a profit center, and a way for them to increase the value in their organization. You're not, this is not harmful in any way to their organization. You're not just a cost. Okay, so that's the way the business assessment really works. It leads to more work for you. I remember I got called in to work with a small loan organization, and they wanted me to run this assessment. And I probably made a couple $1,000s just doing the assessment. It took a couple weeks of work. I mean, it wasn't constant, but I put together an assessment where I plotted all their people on like a wheel like this, where we actually have a 3-dimensional disc, and it shows where everybody falls in the organization. And I really helped them reallocate human capital to the right places. And we keep working together for quite a while after that, because I was credible, because I brought this tool in. It wasn't just me like just shucking and jiving and talking a good game. And eventually, I actually was called in by a larger loan organization a couple years later, and they asked me to help them get the salespeople that they needed on board. They had about 100 working for them, and so I did what I'm about to show you, which is basically how we use this tool for hiring, to help people hire the right people, to build the team that's needed. And this is really what generates passive income, and it also can lead to coaching the new hires that come on because you help them get on board. So let's go to slides here. Just got to do a quick screen share. I'll see if I can split it. This should do it. And this is gonna look like a funhouse mirror for a second. Let's go to slides. All right, so it's gonna get my remote here working, and then you should see the slides at this point. I'm gonna make sure. Yeah, looks right. Looks like we're okay. And so these are just different ways that I could intervene, or that you could intervene in a business to make a difference for that business. If I can find my seat. All right. So I'm just connecting here, and then we'll play. All right, there we go. So there's 3 areas that will tend to intervene in a business that really helps them make money. The talent, of course. These are the stars that are on the team that really, generate the sales and do the coaching and provide the hamburgers and, turn the wrenches and push the buttons here. Keep the business running. It's very important. Then there's the management, the people that are actually motivating and guiding and training the talent, right? That's important. We need to intervene with management, because bad management equals a crappy business most of the time. And then finally, the system. We want to make sure that, because yes, there's leaders here, and then there's great talent, that the troops that do things, but there's also a system involved. There's some electronics, there's some mechanics, there's some warehouse space, there's the step-by-step process that the talent uses, right? That's like the system. If you read E-Myth, Michael Gerber talks about the systems and how business is really a set of systems as well. And then we want to be able to triangulate all 3 of these areas, like get the management, the system, and the talent, like collaborating in the right way together as well. And so, but look, I could work with management to help them work with their talent and redo the system according to what these tools will help us understand about that. We can also recalibrate systems according to the tools as well. And of course, I could also coach the talent individually using these tools. But specifically, we're just going to zoom in on how you might actually select talent, because talent is really, in a lot of ways, what businesses are looking for once they get to a certain size. So this is using these tools for talent selection and acquisition. So first of all, why use any profile for selection? Well, look, these are the things that people look for: skills and experience and a good mindset. Well, skills, problem with that, most of those skills can be taught. They're pretty easily measurable. And their skills are not enough. Some people can do the job, but they maybe won't do the job. Now, experience, usually you're going to pay a premium for experience. It's very expensive. And a lot of times, these people will bring bad experience to the table. They also could poison your team. Like you bring one bad apple, it spoils the bunch, you know? So skills and experience, you still need it, but it's easy to find, easy to select for, and also it's a double-edged sword. These are not the ones that your customers are going to have trouble discovering and have trouble finding. Just checking audio, making sure you haven't lost me yet, because I can't see any chats right now. So really what's left is psychology. Oh, and of course it's experience. Can they even still learn anything? Because maybe their experience is something that won't be enough for them to succeed working for you. So now, coming down to psychology. Psychology, the trouble with it is it's invisible. Okay, you can't see somebody's psychology. Most people can't. Maybe you as a coach can intuit that. And how do you know what their psychology is? You know, because when they're doing an interview, they're dating you, right? Their best foot is forward. You know, are you going to use intuition there? Are you going to plan your business based on intuition? Probably not a really controllable source of business growth. And then finally, I mean, you can use an interview to figure this all out. We also, by the way, know that interviews are about the information that comes from an interview is about as accurate as flipping a coin in the studies that we've done here. So the bottom line is, your candidate's dating you. And I think I've disconnected. Guys, I apologize. My remote has conked out. We're gonna have to keep this going the old-fashioned way. Interviews and resumes are less accurate than flipping a coin, as I mentioned. This is an MSU study that actually determined that. Now we got our remote back, thank God. Psychology drives people's performance. I mean, we know that as coaches. If anybody knows that, we know that. And assessments are the most accurate predictor of job performance. They're the most accurate predictor of job performance. So if you really want to predict somebody's psychology, you got to have their psychographic assessment results, unless you're going to be some kind of psychic, right? And these assessments also can help us predict job performance, and that's in that same study. They said 86% of hiring decisions made from a job interview are literally incorrect. That's worse than flipping a coin, frankly. And when we run assessments, we can turn that problem around. So think of it this way, like if you're going to buy this car, you would, of course, look under the hood, you know, and see how it works. Make sure it's got a good engine, you know, lift the hood up at least. But can you do that with, you know, a Vitamix demonstrator or somebody that's in the troops? You can't rip her brain open, right? You're not gonna find anything inside there that tells you much. So, and even worse, you know, they all look the same sometimes. Which one of these people do you invest all your capital and training and time and resources and trust in, and then bet the future of your company on? Right? Because that's like, this is where the money comes from, or this is where the bread is buttered, this is where the hamburgers get flipped. It's in these people. You know, they said coaches aren't very valuable, right? Come on, they can make the world, you know, they can make the world go around if we understand and appreciate how to use this tool. Not to mention get paid for it. So on the surface, you're not going to be able to see which person to hire. Most people would research the inner workings of a six-figure car, right? Like a Lamborghini or something like that. Why wouldn't you research the inner workings of a six-figure candidate? Somebody who you might end up spending millions of dollars on over the coming years. Of course you want to look under the hood, but how do you do that? The truth is, these 2 people or 5 people, they might have similar qualifications and experience. They might interview similarly. They might look the same on paper. But inside, they can be worlds apart. So, I'll give you an example. If we look at the top performers in the world of sales, 72% of them, 72% of the top people across all the different industries you can think of, have one specific value in common. What we used to call utilitarian, we now call it economic. Yes, let's not call it economic there, right? So it's like, why wouldn't you hire all of your salespeople as that #1 value if you know that's what makes the best? We can show this in graphs, like the economic. The top people are, you know, look how high they are compared to the bottom. Right? That economic value makes all the difference. If all you knew was that, and you went into a car sales place, or you went into, you know, a place that was required salespeople to make money. You know, like solar, the new solar industry. People are walking door to door selling solar. Got somebody knocked on my door the other day trying to sell me solar, right? That salesperson isn't productive. I mean, the company dies, right? So talking about where the bread is buttered, talking about where the money is, right? Top producing salespeople have that value. We also know that most top quartile performers in sales look a lot more like the left graph than they do like the right graph. This is a kind of a plot of lots of different people on one graph. And you can see all the top producers are on the left and all the bottom producers are on the right, and we could have saved ourselves 4 bad hires that fall outside of where the common top producers tend to fall. And so what's the cost of that? What's the cost of making that mistake? That, by the way, that loan company that hired me, that was their wheels that showed where all their bottom hires were. They could have avoided those bad people. So the cost of that for them was, let's say, 2 lost sales per month. Average revenue, $4,000 a sale, so that's $8,000 per salesperson. And of course, the number of months before you fire that guy is probably about 12, because you give them a chance, you give them another chance, you train them, they're brand new. So then every month they're losing you $8,000 that you could have made. So now you got $96,000 per salesperson, total loss per hiring mistake. And then this company, this loan company, made 4 of those in a year. They lost almost $500,000. That's the total loss. Like, do you think if you charge them like a quarter of that, like $60,000, $80,000, like that would be worth it for them if they can make it up in revenue? That's chicken feed for them. So this is the way you get the results. You want to find and replicate, let's say in this case, your perfect salesperson, your perfect bus driver, your perfect, executive, whatever it is that that company needs. This is for hiring. This generates you passive income as a result, because they need to run assessments on everybody. That's what we want to do, though, is we want to take 1 star and we want to make more stars out of them. So we take a benchmark. We benchmark performance. We say, hey, here's all your salespeople. We're going to take those salespeople and we're going to look at the top performers and we're going to look at the bottom performers, and we're going to notice the differences. We just identify the KPIs, the key performance indicators between the top and bottom people. We're not looking at the middle. We don't want more of the middle. We want less of the bottom and more of the top. That's what we're after. And then we just stop hiring people that are at the bottom that look like those particular graphs, those particular patterns. And then we hire even more at the top, because now we know what to look for, and we can eliminate our bottom performers and double our top performers. That's really what this brings to the table. Let's just do that little animation again. See that? So now you've got more and more people that are making more and more sales, and less people that are wasting your lead flow, wasting your money, wasting your management time. I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing for some sales-driven organizations. And again, what your job is as a good coach, as a good HR consultant, is to walk into an organization and find out what are the most critical people on your team that you consistently need to hire, that you need more of. And that if you just had more of them, you'd have a bigger and better business. And then you benchmark performance in that area that they currently have, or at least start benchmarking it, and then you use these assessments to actually hire the right people. So does that make sense? I hope it does. If you got questions about this, hit me up in the chat. We're going to come back to just the full screen of my pretty face here. All right, we actually had a couple. All right, really great. Let's see here. We had a couple chats here. I did an assessment of a company last week. As a result, they could see that the source of the problem was the person in charge. Was frustrated. Was a frustrated ID that was a DI, got it, that was underperforming in sales. As a result, they got an accountant, ID got in sales, things are looking better. Yeah, that's a perfect example. You had somebody who should be in accounting and sales and somebody who should be in sales and accounting, right? Years of frustrations, now they have order. Phenomenal. Let's see. All right, good. Finally got feedback on that. Weird sound in the background. Sorry about that. I have no clue what that is. I do think we're still good as far as far as the mic goes, let me triple check, make sure. Yeah. So sorry about the background noise if that's the case. Hopefully you can still hear me. Yes, that's exactly he used to like to say that, right? Jim Rohn. So anyway, that's just an example of using that in that one specific way. And there's your passive income right there. And then that leads to coaching, because if people are on the fence there and it's like, well, we want to hire this person, but they may not be perfect. It's like, well, hey, I could be your insurance. I could be the coach that really helps to make sure this is the right person for the job and ensure that they're going to perform well, right? So you end up doing coaching with people because you see the issues there. You can bring those up with management, and then they sponsor you coaching them. Does that make sense? I've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching work over the years because of that from businesses. And then finally, and I showed you those wheels in a second. That's just something that looks more like this, right? I know that's not easy to see. But we can plot multiple people on this wheel, and we can do what's called a team wheel. And as a result of that, you can build the right teams, high-performance teams, just by plotting all of the team on the wheel and finding out what are the missing pieces. Because when I look at this wheel and I see, well, gosh, we've got people over in the DI quadrants but no Cs, well, that could be a problem. There's less diversity on that team, and people can have blind spots there, or the team is blind to certain things that normally other people would see, or the people with the other behavioral styles might see. So we can not just find blind spots with individuals that we coach by looking at their assessment results. We can also find blind spots on entire teams, executive teams, people that are collaborating in organizations. That's tremendously valuable. We can also use these assessment tools to help partners work together. So I was hired by a restaurant one time, and one of the partners of that restaurant said, I'm really having trouble working with this other partner, and so how can you help us? And I said, well, I need assessment results on you two, and we're going to get together and find out how do you guys communicate differently. And we're literally doing relationship coaching within a partnership in a business. It totally turned that business around. It's a very well-run restaurant that still probably exists in San Diego even to this day. As I mentioned before, we use this in executive development programs. I talked about Laureate just a second ago. And we also, of course, as I think I mentioned already, can use it in management coaching. Because think of this like a user's manual for the people that you hire, right? And so I give that to management, and then I work with management and the team, the employees, triangulate that and say, look, manager, you need to coach them this way, and look, employee, you need to work on this piece, and everybody's on the same page then, because we have a common language that we can use to get together on the managing and on managers that we can help work with their teams even better. So, I know I dumped a lot on your brain today. I'm going to wrap up just by saying this. I've got a couple actions for you. Number one, run assessments on your top 5 friends. Make the investment, just in your top 5 friends and family, and debrief them. Go over their results with them and learn, because you know these people already. You know what makes them tick. But when you see their results, you're going to connect the dots with what you already have intuitively understood about them and what they know with what the assumptions are in the graph, and you become an expert. 5 or 10 people you can run that on. You're going to be able to read these much faster with much more power than if you hadn't done that practice. So that's your first step in this process. Second, give these assessments away to your prospects. And then get them into a free session where you go over these results and then coach them. Okay? That's where the rubber starts hitting the road, and you can start pitching. You can start offering paid services to them. If you want to get paid for that initial consult, fine, but I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying, give this stuff away. Start using it and add value first before you expect to get value in return. Okay, that's step 2. Third, step 3, start offering these assessments along with coaching. In any of the areas that we talked about today, start offering this stuff. Make offers. Put prices on this stuff. You don't have to charge a lot. Just start something so you can get rolling and you can start seeing money coming in. And then finally, charge businesses for them to use your expertise, your coaching, and these tools and associated services, trainings, etc. to expand the kind of income that you create. If you do that, like I said, eventually you're going to be coming back to me and talking to me like Randy did, telling me these are like crack. Because once businesses get hooked on you and your use of these with them, they're never going to want to let them go. They're going to use you forever, and that's your competitive advantage. It's not just having some tool, although that definitely helps, but your ability to use that tool and create a longer-term relationship with that business over time. You do that, I know we're going to be celebrating that very soon. So somebody said in the chat, I want the assessment in Spanish. So we have Spanish available, I believe. So hit me up on that over email, and I believe we can both have a set of Spanish, like where you can take it in Spanish, and we also, I believe, have a way to output the results in Spanish as well. So yeah, hook up with me on that, and then we'll talk about the logistics on that, because I know you can get it. I just, it's just a matter of like exactly how we need to set it up to make it work, and you're going to be in really, really good shape there. These are multilingual. I mean, we have a lot of times the tools that we've used are in like 10 different, 15 different languages. So that's actually quite important, and it's very useful to do. So that said, take action on this stuff. Ask me questions if you have any follow-ups to this. We can get you trained in this at a much deeper level if you want to go through assessment immersion training. That's happening very soon, if not next semester. Right now, while we were doing this live, it's next semester. And then finally, share this with the people that you know need to hear it. Share it with other coaches or leaders or managers, business owners that can work with you on this as well. And if nothing else, if you want to receive more of this and you really thought this was helpful, like the video wherever you are. That'll help us, and it'll help you get access to this more often. And the guarantee is, if you go to YouTube and subscribe and hit the bell, that'll guarantee you get push notifications every time I go live as well. And I hope that we have a chance to work together on more of this very soon, and I'll see you in week 4 of Coach Certification Training. Take care until then.